landlords, thanks for joining us on this new show, which is yet to be named. So please share with us any of your suggestions. But simply put, we're going to have a conversation. It's going to happen and take place the last Thursday of every month to keep you guys, the landlords of Ontario, completely informed of what's happening and up to date in our great province here. Two of my favorite people are going to be joining me on this conversation. Mr. Rob Di Lisi of Stonegate Legal Services. Say hi.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me.
And Kayla Andrade from Ontario Landlord Watch. Why don't you say hi?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Kevin, for having me back on.
Yeah. They're not going to be our guests today, but this is going to be a conversation between the three of us for all of you all the time. And we may bring on other people depending on what's going on. But here we are, the three amigos, trying to get you some information. We're going to discuss today with you two major changes that have just taken place in the last several weeks. We're going to discuss how the N13 and the renovation process has changed in Toronto. And if you happen to be watching this right now on YouTube, I apologize for my wrinkled shirt. Silly me, spilled some ketchup and mustard on it, so I've decided that wrinkles is better than the other shirt I was going to wear. But if you're not watching us and you're on Spotify, Amazon, or Apple, you can't see. So those are where you can find us as well. But just a few weeks ago, in early June, the province of Ontario introduced Bill 10. This is in regards to illegal activity on and inside the property, making landlords, property managers accountable for illegal activity, drug production, and everything else going on with inside and around their properties. So, Caleb, why don't we start here with you? What are your thoughts on this, and why don't you explain exactly what's happening with Bill 10?
Definitely, my thoughts on this is smoke and mirrors. I think this is about the smoke and mirrors effect that our politicians are doing to make it look like they're cracking down to be tough on crime. But instead, they're making the landlord the big brother and watching these tenants and their activity. And a lot of it has to come to us as landlords trying to dissect what this bill is all about because it's very vague in how what is being defined as criminal activity and what is that reasonable actions that landlords are supposed to be doing. Is it inspections on like every 3 months? Is it inspection every 6 months? Is it knowing about and having evidence that the landlord didn't know about it and didn't go to the landlord and tenant board, or that they did go to the landlord and tenant board? And it brings a lot of concerns, Kevin, because when landlords are putting their information out on a lease, they have to put their address on, right? So it's a very crazy business to be in. But when you are, potentially dealing with, high profile criminal people in your unit and you're not too sure yet, and now you're going to be the rat, we kind of worry about putting our landlords in unsafe zones just because the government can't get their butts together and making sure that their own police service is the people who are out there making sure that they're cracking down, because landlords we're not police. And what we've been advocating for the last 15 years is that we're not social workers either. So our landlords are very passionate about this. I'm hearing from big landlords now in Ontario who are very upset about this, and not just as landlords and big landlords, but our property managers are concerned about this as well. And not only the property managers, we're also seeing people and organizations such as nonprofit housing providers being very concerned about this, because they do have the clientele of people who do come from troubling backgrounds, and that's who their clientele is. So they're wondering, where do they fall within Bill 10 as well?
Yeah. How do you know what's going on behind closed doors, right? We have to give 24 hours notice to enter a property, and they can then deny that access when that time comes. We had one property where we couldn't even get in to do an appraisal because they kept denying it. Right, how are you going to get in to do something else? And if they do have the 24 hours to clean up whatever's going on, anyways, like you said, we are not police.
I think it's going to be about our screening techniques as well. Are we going to be allowed to, discriminate based on criminal record checks? Are we going to be able to do criminal record checks? This is the type of, what footing are they going to get? We have a written submission that we have sent to Doug Downey. He was the guy who thought this was a great idea. He had forwarded our submission to the solicitor. So the next level up that goes through that fine print of everything. So Michael, what was his name here? I'll get back on that one. So we got Michael, but he's definitely the one who is reaching out to landlord associations, housing associations. So they are going to be supposedly communicating with the organizations before they fine tune this bill. But it did get, obviously it's royal assent, and it's coming in play now. It's just a fine print of what that looks like. But bottom line is they are going to be holding the housing provider responsible for their tenants criminal activity.
Hmm.
Rob, yeah, Rob,
Oh,
what does
Rob,
that do
speak up, buddy.
on the legal side of things? Like what's your
Well, yeah, I went through this personally on one of my tenants, Kevin. We've talked about this a few times, where I had a tenant that was doing prostitution and drugs in my unit. I had video evidence of 60 to 70 men coming in and out of the unit a day. I forward the evidence to the police, and they said that it's suspicion. Unless without evidence, they can't do anything. It happened to be that 2 weeks later, they did there was an investigation ongoing. They broke down the door. They arrested them, but then they let them go because, believe it or not, and Caleb mentioned this earlier, they told me that even criminals have the right to housing. So I'm confused. They're trying to bring in a bill that puts the onus on the landlords, but the landlords are not investigators. They can only pass the information to the police, and then the police have to do their jobs. So I don't agree with the bill, and I agree with everything that Kayla mentioned.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I was like it's a catch and release program that we have, like, and trying to get to the landlord and tenant board and having some validation that is underneath, like, what would it be, Rob, N7 on the illegal acts. And are we going to be able to see an expedited hearing based on the evidence? And again, would an adjudicator look at the evidence of suspicion and be like, sorry, it's suspicion? And now we have this I know landlords trying to evict a tenant in a one bedroom unit. She's using it as a drug house, and she's being protected by the community legal services in that for the last 5 years, and they are allowing this drug activity to happen, and no one's doing anything about it. So it's very shocking, and I think it's only just, again, the straw that I think that broke the camel's back, that's happening here in this province, because it's almost like we're in the ring and we're just constantly getting punched.
Yep, I agree.
The rope a dope. We got to keep going, right? We just have to survive it, and eventually we'll come out on the other
I can
end as
only
we're getting
imagine
close to
what
the end.
would happen, Kevin, if we weren't fighting, if we weren't being vocal, if we weren't online, if we weren't coming together to provide education to our landlords. I can only imagine what government would be implementing. Obviously, we can think about different parties, but we would have obviously the full rent control, and we obviously have people, having a private members bill trying to get force landlords to provide the cooling temperatures in the properties now. So
Yep,
it's one thing after another in Ontario.
yep. I agree with you 100%, Gail. I'm telling you as a legal rep, and I'm telling you as a landlord, I agree with you
I
200%. How
gotta
about
have Rob on my YouTube channel now.
that?
It it's simple. I see three major concerns here for us as landlords, housing providers, property managers. One, the fairness to all this. Like I don't understand how they can put that on us. The clarity of what's going on. Like there's still some gray areas. Like how are we supposed to do this? And you're already starting to present this. And then how are they going to enforce it? Those are the three major things that I see here that are to be determined or that we're waiting. And these are at least the major concerns that I see on our side.
But you know what? I think best practice right now is starting to get yourself into knowing this is happening and what can you do, right? So I would look at the third party companies that are coming out there, like your property managers, and making sure that the property managers are the ones that are coming in on a routine basis and documenting their inspections. And then you have a third party. So if you don't have a property manager, get a third party. Show that you have a third party coming in to doing your inspection. You have a full report, and then that way you can show your evidence to whoever is going to potentially say that you are aware of something. It's like, no, I have a third party, and this is who they are. This is what they looked at, and this is what their findings are. But you, like you mentioned, Kevin, like you said, they can hide an elephant in 24 hours. So, what gives us, the landlord's, rights to come in without notice? It's not going to happen. They will have time to hide their evidence. And unless you have cameras all over the place on that property and making sure that they're not directed into the tenants' windows and doors. Good luck trying to get that evidence.
Yeah, even still, your cameras all have to be outside, all pointing away from the property to see anything coming. Like that's not going to determine anything. I just don't see how they can enforce this properly with making us being responsible. Um,
If I may add, like even in regards to giving notice for an inspection, you need to have a valid reason. You can't just say I'm coming to inspect. So the question is, how many inspections can you do a year before they start claiming it's
Exactly.
harassment? And just like you said, if you're giving them 24 hours notice, they now have 24 hours to, like you said, hide an elephant or hide the drugs or hide whatever they have to hide. And on my own properties, I see it myself. They ask me when I'm coming, and if they're doing something that's not right, they fix it before I'm there so that there's nothing to show.
yeah, no, 24 hours is a lot of time.
Rob, you remember like you see it on like TikTok. People are like having a whole bunch of stuffed toys on their bed, and they're like, "Landlord's coming for an inspection," and the dog is
Yes,
inside of the. I'm
yes,
like, people are getting very, or they have like a hole in the wall, and they put a picture frame around the hole, and I'm
that's
like
real. That's
proximity
real.
to some of these tenants. But hey, we're not going to be on here completely bashing. Like, I would like to just pause for a moment and let everybody give a round of applause for the good tenants that we have in this province, because I know we have our bad, we do have our bad tenants ruining it for our good ones, and I feel sorry for them. And that's what we do at Ontario Landlords Watch. We advocate for the landlords, the good landlords. We advocate for the good tenants, and most importantly, we advocate for those taxpayers who are paying a lot of money that is just not called for, just because our elected officials have mismanaged this housing crisis.
Yep, I agree.
We'll
Yep.
keep doing on them. They got some fine tuning to do. We're gonna show how silly they are, but we need everyone's voices, right? We need Rob's voice, we need Kevin's voice, we need all the voices that we have, and it's not just landlords and properties and managers now. We need to get our realtors, our insurance companies. But this was a very fast bill that had got put through, from knowing about it to writing a submission at the last minute and then having its royal assent. But hey, like I said, like we have to keep them on their toes, and we have to remember who voted for this for the next election, right? So Doug Downey put this in, guys. He's been in play for since 2018. I would like to see some fresh eyes, fresh new ideas. And this is why I think it's time to kind of switch out our attorney general. My personal opinion.
The thing is, though, is that a lot of the stuff in the RTA and it was all created back in like the 80s, right? When it was just the big REITs and Connefs and big landlords like that, where now we have a lot more of our individuals are, couples putting their retirement fund into this, the smaller landlords, the one that we normally work for, the ones that need the help, the guidance to go through all this. That's what this has to be about, is all of us understanding and being around so we can make changes for all of us, because it is still the best investment in the world. We just have to work what we can to make it better. Because
I don't think it's the RTA that's the problem. It's the LTB. Because if there's a problem, it shouldn't take 4, 6, 8 months to get in front of the board. So I'm not sure if it's the law that's the problem or the fact that the LTB is so far behind, even to this day, to get in front of the board for a problem.
I think
I think it's a little bit of both. With the definitely like everything was written so long ago, and it was written for the major players, not just the Mr. and Mrs. Smiths that now have a property. I think back then there wasn't as many individual landlords as there is today. But one third of our country paid rent back in 2018 when we did the study, and I would bet dollars to donuts that that number is close to 40% today, and it's going to continue to grow. So everybody needs a roof over their head, and landlords are going to um, be needed more and more and more. So we have to make sure that this is corrected and equal, fair for everybody. I guess is what I want to say.
Rob, like look at what's the salary for an adjudicator at the landlord and tenant board.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's 70,000. If I'm not mistaken.
I've seen some full-time positions at 110,000.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
I
I've
didn't
I've
know
I've
that.
applied 4
Wow.
times to be an adjudicator. Of course, they will never accept me. I'm like the Judge Judy. But this is where we're stockpiling the landlord and tenant board to be this massive enterprise. Like, look at all the taxpayers' money that's going to the landlord and tenant board to hire adjudicators to deal with tenants who can't pay their rent. wouldn't we want to see that money be put in a rent relief program to help tenants pay their rent on time versus bombarding the landlord and tenant board with non-payment of rent applications? Because that's the number one application at the landlord and tenant board. And number two, we have a hearing for personal use applications when landlords know there's a hefty fine to that for doing unlawful evictions. The tenants have, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, is that we're looking at up to 2 years to take their landlord back to the landlord and tenant board for a bad faith eviction.
It's 1 year right
1 year?
now. They're trying to change it to two
Oh, I thought
years.
they already changed it for 2 years. So I know this
No,
is
it's
definitely one
a,
after they move out. So this is where like they already have the protection in place as well. And knowing that you always have the landlord's address or be able to like file, because I'm hearing that they can file even if they don't even know if they serve the landlord. But this is where like how are we really helping tenants, and where are we helping landlords, and where are we helping the taxpayers, knowing that we're all of a sudden just hiring adjudicators that are dropping like flies?
yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. The N12 are getting more popular, and just so you know, the fine right now is
Mm.
35,000. As of October 1st, it's going to be changing to 50,000. Just so you guys are aware of
For an
that.
individual.
For an individual, corporations going up to 500,000.
Yeah, yeah, that
For
was a part of
unlawful
the
eviction.
bill that just again took a long time for it to roll out when it would take effect. So we were prepared for it. We just didn't know exactly when it was happening.
And I'm sure when people start putting it into practice and things start to happen, there will be amendments because that's the way it works. It's not until it's put out that people see the problems and then they try to fix
Mm.
it. But I think it'll be too late.
Oh, this house is burning. They're done.
Let's go back to the N13, I guess, here with the city of Toronto. It also is something that has just come across as well. Rob, you've been talking a lot about this lately, and we've had some conversation as well. So why don't you break it down for everybody? What has changed in the city of Toronto with regards to serving an N13?
So the N13 is what a lot of people called renoviction. That's a big term that they were saying in the news. Essentially, what an N13 is that you are evicting the tenant because of extensive renovations that they cannot come back. So the city of Toronto deciding that they want to get involved in this, they are now saying that you need a license to have to be able to renovate. Here's the thing: is that it's not just the license. So you need to do the N13 notice, which is going to cost you $198 to file. Then there's the renovation license. Then you have to give the compensation to the tenant, depending on how many units there are. It could be quite extensive. And then you must allow them to come back. Moreover, there must be a professional report confirming the need for the the vacant possession. So the problem that I see here is that you're adding more bureaucracy and you have to wait for the license to be approved. Here's what I've seen in Toronto, because I've dealt in Toronto. When you get permits in Toronto, it's not a forever permit. Sometimes it's a 4 month permit, 6 month permit, depending on what it is. By the time you get to the board on an N13, it could be 6 to 8 months, 2 months to get the order, and then 1 month to evict. That permit could be invalid by the time you get these people out. So I see a big problem coming, huge. On top of that, I put this up today, Kevin and Kayla. I'm not sure if you should follow me or not. Is some of the advertisements that they're putting up is that landlords are just renovating for just painting or removing the floors. That is not accurate. An N13 is not used for painting or just removing the floors. It's for extensive renovations or demolishing. So they're putting their own spin on it to show that landlords are evil. And the thing is that landlords are investors. If they're going to take over a property, they want to protect their investment. They want to protect their tenants. They want to make the property better. How do they do that? They have to renovate. But if they renovate, they need the rent to pay for that, which means they want to raise the rent. Well, the only way that you can raise your rent is if they vacate the property, which, yes, in the past, a lot of landlords have used the N13 to their advantage to get them out so that they could raise the rent.
You know what? If you look at how you like when they talk about flooring, we talk about like any minor renovation, like flooring in itself, like if you're going to do the entire unit, do they really expect us to move the tenant's belongings around every time we have to like do the flooring? And what if you're cutting like the laminate or the vinyl and now it gets on the tenant's stuff, or you have a drywall repair and that stuff is coming down and now you have tenants complaining about what was damaged because of your renovations. And again, we have to give 24-hour notice, letting the tenants know we're coming back, we're coming back, we're coming back. Like we're trying to provide safe and affordable housing here, but and we know what it's like dealing with just trying to get a permit from a city. Why are developers crying that it takes 3 to 4 years to get their shovels in the ground? And now you want to load your staff members who are already maxed out on time to handle renovations when we have aging infrastructure across this province. And we know that because we have nonprofit housing providers and municipalities doing the exact same thing. They're relocating their tenants and taking down buildings to build new ones. And it's going to be very easy for them. But the private sector, they don't want it. Now, why?
Yeah. Good point, Kayla. Well said.
You get me so passionate about this.
I'm just warming up.
Uh,
It says though, right? It's because all of us are involved with other people's, right? Other people that are involved in this. We see it on a grander scale. It's not just like we have our one or two properties. It's everybody else that we're seeing go through this. So we see more and more and more of it. And there is still a lot of great tenants out there, a lot of great landlords out there. And again, I'll say it again and again. It is the best investment in the world, but it has to be more balanced, more understanding, and everything. Like again, just to go back to this about the renovations to do it while they're in the property. If we need to do some upkeep, they can still deny us entry. We had a windstorm that took off a chunk of a roof, which caused a little bit of a water leak, which we had to get fixed in the property. Everything that we had to do with the repainting and the fans that had to go in, they denied us, they delayed it. The tradespeople would go, and all of this while they're complaining to me that it's not getting fixed fast enough. But they're the ones denying entry and saying that they can only come on a certain date. But because of with wall, you have to, do it one day and come back the next day to finish off, right? Anyways,
Bottom line,
I
Kevin, this is not the city's jurisdiction. This is the province. The province has a process in place. Why are they allowing cities to implement bylaws and policies that contradict what the province is already doing or laying an extra layer on it, right? This is where you have to tell them to stay in their own lane. And the province is failing at doing the job and saying, hey, municipalities, what are you doing? Like you're impacting the housing supply by introducing these type of rules and regulations on our housing providers. And we worry, like, why are you trying to get the private sector out? Are you really trying to hope and pray that nonprofit housing providers can come in and meet the end of the bargain? But are really all nonprofit housing providers doing the job that we assume they're doing, or is it just in their title? We'll have to do that for another show.
I think it's the money. I personally feel it's the money. They're looking for ways to generate revenue. I know this is off topic, but look at the speed cameras that they're using right
Yep.
now. That has nothing to do with your license. It has nothing to do with your insurance. It's just straight monetary.
And I was like upset with this because if you look at when you're driving and what I upset was like in the school zones in itself is that it was 40. They brought it down to 30 and then they put a camera. And your cruise control can only go to 40. It can't go to 30. So how many people are going to be looking at their wheel versus looking around for children? And why is it all the time and not through school times of in which children are out there? And why aren't we providing education to the children to know that the street is not a safety thing? This is where they're broke. It's misspending on multiple different levels. And this is how our government is trying to get it. It's called a hidden tax. And that's what they've been doing from water billing to the cameras to the renovation bylaws and the landlord licensing. It's not going to stop until we speak up and we do our own protest. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm still thinking about it.
Rob and I were talking earlier about all this, and because Toronto did it, it's going to expand. Other municipalities are going to follow suit and say, "Hey, this is another way that we can grab a few $100s every time somebody wants to do something." It is 100% a money grab. That is for sure.
So they're already doing this in Hamilton, just so you know.
Mm.
They're already doing this in Hamilton.
And then with the renovation,
Yeah. They
yeah,
were the first ones to actually do it. And Toronto looked at it and said, "Oh, look, there's a way of making more money."
Well, you guys seen the rent safe TO in Toronto, and now they want to
Yeah.
start color coding our landlords' buildings. I'm
Yeah.
like, are we going to be able
Yeah.
to color code the tenants? Like, if that's where you're going here, I'm like, I'm up for it. But we will be color coding our tenants if that's the case. But again, this is the fact that our government doesn't know the solution. They don't even know the definition of affordable housing, but this is their attempt to do it. And they want to throw landlords and private investors underneath the bus to make it look like we're the problem, but it's not. It's our elected officials, it's our levels of government embedded into this industry because they're benefiting off of our misfortune as well.
yeah,
Yep.
no, and they like making realtors look bad along the way too. With everything that's going on, we were talking about that the last time with the CBC special that they did. Just how it was completely trashed towards this industry, the real estate side of it all,
Oh, you
where
know the real
you know,
estates are next. The real estate agents are next. Like they are coming, and you're next.
Kevin, we did try to defend you on that series, okay?
no, 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 no. It's but I'm just saying that's the way CBC portrayed it, right? They definitely spun it that way at all. And like
Well, if I may, since you're talking about it, Kevin, they had no idea that agents were not supposed to get involved. It wasn't until Beta sat down with them and explained it. So yeah, they were trying to throw the agents under the bus.
it wouldn't be the first time. I've seen a few of their specials where, they instead of looking at that one specific instance and saying this can happen, they're clumping all of us, right? There's 111,000 in the province. And again, when we're talking about landlord and tenant issues, there's very few, I think, that are involved. And if you are a landlord looking to do something like this, talk to somebody that is involved in this on a daily basis. Don't just get your cousin who has their license to help you with something, right? Get someone that's involved the entire time.
You know what?
Same reason why I
Yep.
don't sell cottage property.
I think they go to a realtor because they want it to be listed on MLS. They want it to make sure that they're able to get the credit check because a lot of landlords don't know that they can get their credit checks done themselves for these potential tenants at frontlobby.com. And they don't know that you can report unpaid rent and unpaid utilities without going to the landlord and tenant board. We have to put these tools and we have to speak about them wherever we are in order to bring in the tools that we need while we're going through these troubling times. Because advocacy in itself is not going to be enough. We do need the different services and we do need different tools and we need different professionals to help us in Ontario because Ontario is the worst in all of Canada. And number two is BC. And unfortunately, our elected officials in Ontario seem to be watching what's going on in BC a lot. I don't know why, but it's horrible. They should close their eyes. Someone needs to blindfold them. I think they should be looking at PEI because you can, if I'm not mistaken, the PEI is where you can file at the landlord and tenant board for free. And it's like, you can do $25 free here and here in Ontario. We got $186 up to 201. I'm like, why such a big difference if you're still providing the same type of service? But that's another
Because there's
thing.
more
I'll keep
rental
it silent.
properties here, so it's more money to grab for them.
Yeah,
That's exactly
Yep.
why.
it's sad and it's unfortunate, but you know what, this is where you guys are bringing the information to the people. We just now, to whoever's listening, if you know a landlord or if you know a property manager or a realtor or a contractor who is in the business of providing services to this community, please share this podcast with them. Let them know that there's much more to a purpose of this housing industry, and they need to be involved. They need to be involved, and we need to talk about what we're talking about, also sharing these different tools.
And
Yeah.
if I may, and Kayla, I want to say thank you for being such a strong advocate because I do see you all over the groups, and I have to say you are one of the forerunners of this industry. Unfortunately, I can't say too much on these public forums, but yeah, good job.
I know, and you know what? It's sad because like someone who you are in your background and how many clients come to you for their problems, like your voice would be so huge. But unfortunately, they get muzzled, right? That's why I did create a talk show. I'm not saying anything. It's on X, so also known as Twitter. And you can create your own little handle, or you can listen anonymously. But this is a platform for us to like have this conversation and vent about it, speak from your heart, and not have to worry about it being tagged technically to your name, so to speak. I've had a lot of firefighters and police officers, lawyers for the city of Hamilton, um, and they all want to say their story, but based on who they are and what they do in the public sector, they can't, right? So on the first Thursday at 7 o'clock, the first Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock on X on the Ontario Landlords Watch handle, that's where we have the Kayla Unfiltered housing call-in show. So this is Kayla filtered right now. Come over and see what we're all about and have this conversation. We have maximum about 10 people on talking at a time. So rotate everybody out, give everybody a voice, because our voice is what's needed. And thank you, Rob, for saying that sweet stuff. I've been doing it for 15 years, and I love to know that we have as many people in the corner as possible. And I want to create more me's. It's going to be, don't tell my husband I said that though. He would not want more me's.
Well, no, I think it's great that we are all here for the landlord, for the industry, for fairness throughout the entire concept of the landlord and tenant world, right? To make sure that it can continue to be a great investment for all and something balanced and something we can continue to do. And we will continue to educate, inform. These conversations will continue to happen, whether it's on this show, which I think is going to, well, actually, which I do know is going to be released on the last Thursday of every month. As Kayla mentioned, her conversation on X or Twitter is the first Thursday of every month, so they're back to back. And who knows? Maybe one day we'll do this on a live stream so that people can call in or type in and ask some questions while we're live here as well. But uh, I think this was awesome for our very first show. We covered more than what we wanted to, but always great information going out there to everybody. Rob, Kayla, thank you so much for being here. Kayla, do you want to say any last words to everybody before we go?
Make sure you're following Kevin. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to find me, I'm on all platforms from YouTube to Instagram, LinkedIn, because that's where my policy advisors / elected officials are. So make sure you guys are over there as well. And give me a friend request and a follow on Ontario Landlords Watch.
And Rob, what about you? Say bye.
Yeah. Again, follow Kevin. Kevin has been very good at advocating for landlords. And if you want to follow us, we're easy to find as well on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And it's Stonegate Legal Services.ca. And everyone seems to know my wife more than me because she's far prettier.
You guys are both good looking.
She's way prettier than
Okay, you know
me.
what? I'll have
Rob,
both
that's a
of you
good
on
thing,
my
though.
channel, and then we'll let the people be a
Okay, there we
okay.
go. There we go.
We'll have a vote.
A
No,
vote.
but yeah, thanks so much, guys, for the kind words here about what we're doing. But yeah, definitely follow, subscribe, like all those fun things to make sure that you're always going to be updated with what's going on, especially if you're a landlord. Share with other landlords, and we'll be back again next month and all time on the other Landlord Ontario series, Ontario Landlord series. Well, maybe one day I'll do that, right? Anyways, thanks so much. This is the first one. It was a lot of fun, and we look forward to doing this again.
Had a
Bye for
lot of
now.
fun, guys.
Bye bye.